Alright everyone, welcome to the channel. It's Certified Optimist. In case you're new, please do make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you're a subscriber, make sure you hit that like button, you share this video, and feel free to drop a comment. Now today we'll be looking at mechanical royalties as administered in the United States of America. The body or the organization responsible for the collection of mechanical royalties in the United States of America is the Harry Fox Agency, simply known as HFA. Okay, so HFA issues mechanical license to reproduce and distribute copyrighted musical works to the public for private use within the US. Okay, so HFA licenses from DIY bands and religious organizations to companies, and also include online music services, ringtone companies, lyrics and tablature distributors, and digital background music service providers. Now, for the purpose of this discussion, we'll be looking at the definition of the following terms. So, who's a licensee? A licensee is a person or business entity who has been granted a license by a right holder. Next term we'll be looking at is mechanical license. So a mechanical license grants the right to reproduce and distribute musical works embodied in sound recordings, video CDs, records, tapes, ringtones, permanent digital downloads, interactive streams, and other digital configurations. Okay, so in essence, what does the HFA do? The HFA is powered by the largest database of music compositions linked to sound recordings. HFA connects music users to right holders and distributes royalties to those right holders. As a right holder, you are able to sign up for a free HFA online account and register your songs, which enable HFA to match those songs to sound recordings and distribute royalties you are owed. Alright, so let's look at the benefits of affiliating with HFA. One, you have the ability to obtain back office support at a low cost, ability to earn more in royalties, ability to easily expand your royalty pool, ability to collect royalties on international uses of your music, ability to obtain on demand your registered musical works, and linked sound recording metadata to assist you in managing your assets. Why do you need a mechanical license? If you're manufacturing and distributing copies of a song that you do not own or control, you need to obtain a mechanical license. This is required by the US Copyright Act, regardless of whether you are selling the copies that you make or whether you are charging anyone to access these songs on your website or service. If a song has already been recorded and commercially released, you can record and distribute it as long as you obtain a license and pay royalties. You do not need a mechanical license if you are recording and distributing a musical work you wrote yourself and to which you currently own the copyright. You also do not need a mechanical license for any musical works that are in the public domain. However, before reproducing and distributing a musical work which you believe to be in the public domain, you should research its copyright status or consult with an attorney. Now, how do you get a mechanical license? Depending on your situation, you may be eligible to obtain a limited quantity of mechanical license through HFA's song file, which would permit you to reproduce and distribute a limited number of copies of the musical work, and for which you would pay the total royalty amount in advance and would not be required to account to HFA thereafter. Otherwise, you will need to set up an HFA license account, which entitles you to obtain licenses for songs owned or administered by the publishers of 100,000 catalogs affiliated with HFA and account to HFA on a quarterly basis. Now, what is a compulsory mechanical license? If a composition has already been released to the general public and you wish to record and distribute that composition yourself, and you are not the original songwriter, you must obtain a compulsory mechanical license. The requirements of the compulsory mechanical license are outlined in section 115 of the US Copyright Act. Now let's quickly rush off to HFA rates. We're going to look at some categories under rates. We're going to look at the rates related to physical reproductions. Okay, so we have compact discs, LPs, cassettes, and similar products. Okay, for these you pay 9.1 cents. This is a payable royalty chained to the number of units. Note that songs over 5 minutes in length have a rate of $1.75 per minute or fraction thereof. Now the next category is for downloads. Okay, so let's take a look at permanent digital downloads. A download that can be retained and played permanently, like songs downloaded to your PC or phone. The rate will be 9.1 cents. Now let's look at other types of downloads. Let's look at ringtones. Recordings downloaded to your phone that play when someone calls. Of course, you know these are ringtones. The rates for these kind of reproductions will cost 24 cents. Alright, so guys, let's quickly have a live scenario here. Let me do my best to explain this to you guys in using some figures and people and examples. Okay, so your song titled Down in the Dumps, for instance, recorded by Soda Cake, is on Blue Coast Records. Blue Coast Records distributed physical CDs or vinyl or USB sticks with the song on it to retail stores for sale. You're owed 9.1 cents from every CD manufactured. Blue Coast Records pays you or your publishing company that 9.1 cents. The publisher will take half of that publisher's share and send the other half to you. This is known as the writer's share. An administrative publisher, according to that agreement, will take anywhere from 15 to 25% and pay you, that is the writer, the rest. Okay, so let's have a physical scenario for downloads. Okay, so we're still gonna stick to Blue Coast Records. So Blue Coast Records submitted a digital version of the Down in the Dumps record to a digital distributor for digital sales of the song. So Blue Coast Records owes you 9.1 cents for each download. Now the next thing we'll be moving on to is how do you get your money? Alright, so the digital distributor will pay Blue Coast Records the full amount of money for the sale of the song minus their fee. The record label will pay the publisher or you the mechanical royalty out of that sale. Now, what happens if you are the label? The money from the sale of the download will come to you minus the administrator's fee. You, the label, is responsible for paying the publisher or administrative publisher the mechanical royalties from the sale. The publisher or admin publisher will pay you the writer's share, or based on your agreement, you will pay them their share. Another big question is, what happens if you are the artist? Okay, so record companies usually put controlled clauses in their artist agreement. This clause allows them to only pay 75% of the current statutory rates per song. It further enables them to only pay on 10 or less songs per album. Most indie artists today are not signed to record labels. Now let's dive into how royalties from streaming are shared. So royalties from streaming services are divided into two types. We have the interactive and then the non-interactive. Let's quickly look at the interactive streams. Interactive or on-demand streams allow the listener to select and play any song on demand. Interactive streams owe mechanical royalties for the underlying copyright, that is the song / the composition, and for the sound recording, that is the recording. The sound recording royalty payments come from the interactive streaming services like Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, etc. The streaming services pass these payments to the digital distributor, also known as the aggregator. The distributor pays the label or the artist, okay? And then the label keeps the sound recording mechanical royalty. So please note that in the US, the calculation of royalties is based on the individual tracks featured on the physical record. For a track with a duration of 3 minutes 50 seconds, the mechanical rate is 9.1 cents. For a track with a duration of 5 minutes 40 seconds, mechanicals or the mechanical royalty will be 6 times 1.75 cents, which will be equal to 10.5 cents due. Calculate this for every track on the physical record. Add up the number and you will know the amount of mechanical royalties due for the physical record. Note, it is also possible for copyright owners and licensors to negotiate for an individual rate. Either way, in case you are signed to a publisher and this publisher has their mechanicals administered by a licensing agent like HFA, don't forget to factor in their services fees as well. And if there is more than one songwriter involved, the amount of royalties is to be divided according to the actual shares each songwriter or their publisher holds on the composition. Now let's quickly look at download sales. Mechanical royalties for download sales are calculated in exactly the same way as their physical counterparts. What about streaming mechanicals? In the US, on-demand streaming services pay a rate of 10.5% of the music service revenue to authors and composers. However, these 10.5% include both the performance and the mechanical royalties and thus need to be split up accordingly.